Yesterday, and we have to analyse that over 65% of voters have now cast their votes. Yesterday itself, it was across 117 constituencies in the third phase of the Lok Sabha elections. With the third phase, votes have now been cast in over 50% of the seats. To be precise, 304 seats, leaving 303 seats, leaving another 240 to yet vote. So, majority over. We're now joined by CNN News 18's Zaka Jacob to give us the highlights that he's picking up from his entire reporting team. Good morning, Zaka. Thank you very much for coming up early for us. Well, you know, when we last spoke to you, you said halfway through the trend usually becomes clear. Now voting done for 303 constituencies. Which way is the wind blowing?
I think the interesting thing is this phase, which is the biggest, the third phase, in which 116 constituencies went to polls. I think certainly from the voter turnout, it's been slightly higher than the first two phases. The first two phases, particularly in Uttar Pradesh, there is evidence to show that the voter turnout was lower compared to 2014. So the sense was, you know, that incremental vote, the Modi vote in 2014 at the height of the Namo wave, that had waned. The wave had waned, and therefore we were back to a normal election in the first two phases. In the third phase, we are once again seeing an uptick in the voter turnout. Certainly in Uttar Pradesh, we're seeing very high voter turnout in Kerala. In some constituencies in Kerala, for example, in Pathanamthitta, where the whole Sabarimala agitation had happened over the last 6 months, there's a 5% increase in voter turnout compared to the previous election. So even in Gujarat, voter turnout has gone up. So I think this phase, the phrase that I use is the third phase is where the election turns. And I get a feeling from the increased voter turnout, the uptick that we've seen, whether in UP or in Kerala or in Gujarat, the sense that I get is this is really the phase where the election has turned. And my sense is that the BJP has more to cheer and the opposition has more in terms of concerns after this phase than would have been the case after the first two phases.
Okay, Zaka, hi, good morning and thanks for joining us. Is it tried and tested that a higher voter turnout generally works in favour of the BJP?
The conventional wisdom has always been that greater the turnout, greater the anti-incumbency, and therefore you vote out the incumbent government. But what we've seen with Narendra Modi, and this is true of his years in Gujarat as chief minister, as well as of course in the 2014 election, is the incremental vote of about 4 or 5%. The voter who pushes the turnout from say the 60% mark to the 70% mark, that extra vote is a Namo vote. That is over and above party ideology, that's over and above the BJP's traditional voter. This is a voter who is just voting for Narendra Modi. And I think that we didn't see evidence of that in the first two phases, but in the third phase, I think we're seeing that incremental voter come back in different states. It's not just a one-state phenomenon. It's happening in different states. And perhaps that is something that that augurs well as far as the BJP is concerned. And like I said, that would be a matter of concern for the opposition.
Okay, of course. Zaka, the kingmaker state is still UP, and that's what people want to know. Last time it was a sweep for BJP, but this time you have the Mahagathbandhan of SP and BSP. Is that working on ground or not?
Well, we don't know that. We'll know that on the 23rd of May. What is interesting about this phase is that in the 10 constituencies that went to polls, 9 of those constituencies have SP candidates. Unlike in the last phase, where out of the 8, 6 of them were BSP candidates. The challenge for the Gathbandhan will always be, will the Yadav voter vote for a BSP candidate and vice versa? Will the Dalit voter vote for a Yadav candidate? What happened in 2014 was also, there is evidence to show, CSDS survey and other post-poll surveys in 2014 have shown that a chunk of the Yadav vote, a reasonable chunk, did not vote on caste lines, did not vote for the Samajwadi Party. Instead, they voted for Narendra Modi and for the BJP. The question really as far as Uttar Pradesh in this particular phase, because it's the Yadav belt, Maipuri, Etawah, Firozabad, etc., the question once again is, has the Yadav vote once again not gone on caste lines, and has it gone back as the quote-unquote Hindu vote, in which case it would have gone to the BJP? I think that question is central to deciphering how this particular phase of 10 seats in the Rohilkhand region in UP has voted.
Okay, so in Gujarat, Zaka, BJP had scored 26 out of 26 the last time around. Does that win look repeatable after the state elections, after GST, the farm distress and the trump card that could be Hardik Patel?
Well, 26 out of 26 is hard to repeat. I mean, you can't afford to lose a single seat. I would imagine that there will be a few dents here and there. But, you know, I want to compare this to what happened in the 2017 assembly elections, when certainly the Patidar anger was much more than what it is now. Hardik Patel was very much a factor. Right now, though, I think the fact that the Supreme Court disallowed him from contesting in Jamnagar was a bit of a body blow as far as Hardik Patel is concerned. Alpesh Thakur, the Thakur Sena, which again was a huge factor in the 2017 assembly polls, Alpesh Thakur has quit the Congress. So again, you know, there isn't a channel for this voter anger to reveal itself as far as on voting day or on counting day is concerned. Again, the Patidar agitation, the sense in Gujarat is it's a lot more subdued compared to 2017 when the state went to assembly polls. So it'll be interesting to see whether it is farm distress, even GST. You remember this in 2017 when the assembly elections happened. You know, before the day of voting, it was like, you know, the entire urban centers of Gujarat will vote against Narendra Modi and the BJP because GST was so unpopular. It's a mercantile society. The cities are, of course, flush with businesses, and it turns out that almost entirely urban Gujarat, the BJP swept. And I suspect the same thing could likely happen again, at least as far as urban Gujarat is concerned, because you know, it is Mr. Modi's home state. Also, Amit Shah is making his Lok Sabha debut from Gandhinagar, the capital of Gujarat. So I think to all of these factors put together, yes, there might be a seat or two here and there which the Congress feels it has a chance in, but I don't see 26 come down substantially in terms of the BJP's tally in Gujarat.
Okay, there will be a couple of them. But, you know, you referred to Pathanamthitta earlier. Does the BJP open its account in Kerala, in God's own country?
This is the million-dollar question. No one quite knows. What we do know is that there has been a solid jump in the voter turnout figures across the state of Kerala, and particularly in some of these constituencies where the BJP hopes it might open its account. One is Pathanamthitta, where there's been a 5% jump just on preliminary voter turnout data that's been put out by the Election Commission. This indicates that yes, there has been some form of consolidation of votes. Certainly, Sabarimala has been an emotional issue, not just in that constituency, but across the state. Also, what is interesting in this constituency is both the left and the Congress candidates are both Christian. So there's a 40% Christian population in Pathanamthitta, and there's a 50% plus Hindu population. If the Christian vote gets split sort of right down the middle between the left and the Congress candidates, and if there is reasonable consolidation of the Hindu votes, then the BJP candidate there, K. Surendran, has a chance. The other constituency, of course, is Thiruvananthapuram, where again it's a three-way fight. You've got Shashi Tharoor, the incumbent MP of the UDF, you've got Kumaram Rajashekaran of the BJP, and you've got a pretty popular left candidate in Divakaran. But I think Tharoor is slightly better placed than his counterpart in Pathanamthitta, because Tharoor has a vote of his own. You know, there are traditional left backers who might vote for him. There are traditional BJP backers who might vote for him, because let's face it, he's a very popular member of parliament. So these are the two seats where the BJP feels it could likely open its account. Whether or not it will, in God's own country, riding on the back of Lord Ayyappan, we'll know on the 23rd of May.
Okay, so now the trillion-dollar question then, is the BJP coming back to par in the worst-case scenario with perhaps slightly trimmed majority?
I don't want to stick my neck out and then, you know, the result to be the exact opposite on the 23rd of May. But I think the sense is that, you know, if we were to see a slightly more coherent opposition, which I'm afraid we haven't. I mean, if there were a proper Mahagathbandhan, if the Congress were the sort of fulcrum of that opposition alliance and the other parties sort of revolved around it, then maybe, you know, at the halfway stage, we would have been looking at a slightly different scenario. But because that Mahagathbandhan across the country did not fructify, you're basically looking at individual, you know, state-level battles, in many cases even constituency-to-constituency battles. I think, you know, that X factor, as they call it, would possibly once again be, you know, if not Narendra Modi, then who? Most voters, even though they say, you know, there are problems on the job creation front, there are problems on the agrarian distress front, but, you know, when our reporters go out in UP or Bihar or in other hinterlands, they say, yeah, we are suffering from all of these problems, but then we'll still end up voting for Modi. So I think that's a refrain that we've heard quite often in this election.
Okay, we won't have to wait too long.